Welcome back to Mornings Don't Have to Suck, your go-to AM motivation and mindset podcast to start your day without the dread. In the short time we have together, you might just learn something new about yourself and how to approach your day from a new and clever perspective. I am your host, Kaylin, founder of Live Your Clever Life Coaching, and we will jump right into it today. I'm chuckling only because you have a wonderful blooper coming at the end of this episode. That's all. So look forward to that. But we, as always, jumping right into it today, we are going to talk about taking up your space. Now, I hope my coach listens to this episode, my mentor, because she's going to be clapping her hands very loudly for this one, because this is something we've talked about for myself as I've progressed and invested more time in myself, of course, and in this business. And we're going to talk about it in a couple different ways. So first, I want us to approach this topic of taking up space from the very obvious physical space, right? And I don't mean like when you are standing in a room, how much space you take up, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about how big or small you are, how tall you are, how short, whatever, right? I am talking about when you are doing physical things, whether you're walking down the street, whether you're presenting to a group or to a meeting, whatever it is, that you are owning the space that you take up. Here's what I mean by that. Paying attention to your posture as somebody who is almost 6 feet tall. Everybody says I'm 6 feet tall, but I'm not. I'm 5'11" and a half. Anywho, as a woman who has always been tall, I am a sloucher. And I developed it when I was younger because I was one of the tallest people and I didn't like not fitting in, because when we're kids, we want to be like everyone else. We don't want to stand out. So I developed a very severe slouch. I can still sit up. I'm working on it. Yoga helps. I'll say it. But when you're slouching, you are intentionally taking up less space. And that's exactly what I was doing. Like I said, I didn't want to stand out. I can say that one of my sisters did this too. I think we all do it, but she's probably going to listen to this and be like, hey, but she knows it because we were all tall and it was uncomfy, right? We didn't want to be the person that everyone was staring at. But now we realize none of that really matters. And if you're listening to this and it still matters to you, please listen harder, because I want you to leave this one feeling a little bit stronger in exactly who you are and how much space you take up. It's okay to take up space. It's okay to be the size that you are, whatever that is to you. I talk about this a lot in my spin classes because we do a lot of moves, right? Where you're using your body weight, whether we crank up that gear and you're trying to climb a hill to the beat of a song. If you don't use your body weight to help you get there, your legs are going to be very tired. They'll be tired either way. But if you use your body weight and you take up your space and you put more of your weight into it, I'm looking forward to see how that sounds. You really get more out of your experience. So thinking about that, as you go about your day today, whatever you have on your agenda, pay attention. When you're walking, are you walking with your head held high and letting yourself take up space, or are you slouching and kind of hiding yourself? Pay attention. If you catch yourself doing either or, ask yourself why. Because it'll probably start to lead to either reinforcing taking up that space, or maybe I need to focus more on taking up that space. It's mine. It's no one else's. I don't have to fit any sort of mold. So I challenge you to think about that today, especially if you're a sloucher like me. Sit up, head back, make it so your lungs can breathe, chest open, right? It makes a big difference. Transitioning into a different type of space that you take up is your vocal space and the space your voice takes up. Now, if you are a woman and if you are a woman in a corporate setting, I really want you to hear me, because oftentimes we are talked over. If you are a minority in the corporate space, please listen as well. Anyone who has ever been outnumbered in a workspace or in a group or in a community, please make sure that you listen to this, because your voice is very important and you're not always required to yell and to speak your mind and to always be heard. But there are times when it's important for you to speak up. And of course, it's an art, right? Like, have you ever been in a meeting or any sort of social event where one person is completely monopolizing the conversation because they want to be the main attraction, right? That's not what I'm saying. More of what I'm saying is being confident in the words that you do have when you have them, and being willing to bring them forth when the time, demands it, right? Another thing that is common is if you are a child with siblings, right? So if you grew up with other people, your birth order has an impact on this. I am the youngest, and my coach and I had a discussion about this because I was going through a lot of launches at the earlier stages of my business where I was like, oh, well, I'll wait and I'll do it at this time. And she was like, okay, cool. But why are you waiting? And in my head, I had all these reasons like, well, I don't want to take away from this and I don't want to outshine this. And she was like, okay, but what does that have to do with? And I was like, oh, well, I didn't look at it that way. I didn't think about it like I was stepping out of the way so others could do things. I just thought it would make more sense logistically. But now that you point that out, I was logistically creating that, right? I was creating it to make it work logistically. So think about that in your life, in your relationships, in the chances that you're taking on yourself. If you're starting a business, whatever it may be, pay attention to that vocal space that you take up. If you're not taking up very much and you feel that you have more to say, here's your cue. Here's your permission. Start to give yourself grace and start to speak up a little bit more. If you feel that you speak up a good amount already, great. Own that space. Continue to own it. Make sure at that same time, though, that you're not monopolizing it, right? That you're giving others the space to speak and take up their space as well. Now, lastly, we are going to focus on who determines how much space you take up. And I think without realizing it, a lot of the times other people have determined that for us. So we've just been like, yeah, you're right. That's how much space I take up. That's what I'm going to do. And I'll just stay in that lane. Back to like the being tall, we can flip it around and maybe you have always been a little shorter than everybody else. And you're so used to trying to stretch. So you understand it from a different perspective, right? But in that moment, you determined how much space that you take up. So start to have that in your brain as we go about today. And as you face the challenges that you normally do, or you face the stressors that you normally do, pay attention to how you react. And in that reaction, how much space you're taking up, both physically, vocally, and also mentally. And on top of that, who's determining how much space you take up? Make sure it's you. That's my suggestion today and forward. Even if you've never thought about this topic before, starting now and making it a normal part of your day, you're going to start being like, oh, wow, it does feel better when I own the space I'm in. And I confirm that with myself and I reinforce that with myself. So something to think about. So as you go through your normal day, whether you're working, whether you have the day off, whether you are at home with your kids, whether you're out in the field, whatever it is that you are doing, try to pay a little bit more attention today about the space you take up and how you take it up. And also the different areas of your life where some areas you're way more willing to take up space than others. When we start to pay attention to these things, we start to notice what the whys behind it. And we go, okay, maybe I can actually change that and have it not be that big for me because I'm actually the one who created it in the first place, right? So start to think about that. If you've never thought about this before or heard it before, you're probably like, what is this woman talking about? It's real. It's part of our everyday, especially if you are a woman in today's world, if you are a person of color, if you are anybody who has ever been considered a minority. I'm talking directly to you. I'm talking directly to everybody because, of course, everyone deserves that same thing. But those who have been made small for their entire history and their entire existence need to hear this. And I want you to listen and internalize it and take it and run with it and do something with it today and this week and this year. 2025 is off to a start. I'll leave it at that. So let's start taking control of what we can and determine how much space you take up and what you do with that space. Have a wonderful day. I wish you all the best energy, all the light in the world as you face your normal days, hopefully with a little bit of a different approach today. That's why I make these episodes is we tend to get in the habit of waking up and whatever the day of the week is, we go, oh, great, it's another Monday, or oh, great, it's another Tuesday. This is going to be terrible. When if you listen to something else or if you pay attention to something else and you shift your perspective at the beginning of the day, you might approach the day a little bit differently. And that's my hope for you. So I wish you a wonderful day again. I will see you back here bright and early tomorrow. But have a wonderful day and we will see y'all soon. Welcome back to Mornings Don't Have